Good morning. The time for convening having arrived, the Senate will now come to order. At this time, I would ask that all unauthorized persons exit the chamber. Chair would like to recognize the distinguished senator from the 56th who has large shoes to fill in this role today.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's an honor to give you this day in history, January the 15th. In 1889, the Coca-Cola Company was incorporated here in Atlanta. And in 1929, Martin Luther King Jr. was born right here in Atlanta, Georgia. And on this day in history, some 30 years ago, the senator from the 19th won his first argument with his sister and soon will become a learned attorney in South Georgia. And the journal has been read and found to be correct.
Thank you, Senator. Is there objection to dispensing with the reading of the journal? The chair hears none, and the reading of the journal is dispensed with. Is there objection to the confirmation of the journal? The chair hears none, and the journal is confirmed. All senators who have bills or resolutions, please bring those forward to the Secretary's desk. Mr. Secretary, first reading of Senate bills and resolutions.
Senate Bill 280 by Senator James of the 35th and others, a bill to be titled an act to amend Chapter 8 of Title 12 of the Official Code of Georgia to be annotated related to waste management so as to prohibit the distribution of certain bags made of plastic film by certain retail establishments.
Economic development.
Senate Bill 281 by Senator James of the 35th and others, a bill to be titled an act to amend Article 4 of Chapter 11 of Title 16, Code Section 1511.2 and Code Section 221184 of the OCGA relating to dangerous instrumentalities and practices, definitions regarding the juvenile code.
Judiciary.
Senate Bill 289 by Senator Mellis of the 53rd, a bill to be titled an act to amend Chapter 5 of Title 48 of Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to ad valorem taxation of property so as to remove the requirement.
Finance.
Senate Bill 290 by Senators Harrell of the 40th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 48.7.121 of Official Code of Georgia annotated related to credit of estimated tax payment, credit of refund of estimated tax. Senate Bill 291 by Senators Henson of the 41st and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 31 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated related to health so as to create provisions for physician assisted
Health and Human Services.
Senate Bill 292 by Senator Harrell of the 40th, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 8225 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to statewide application of minimum standard codes requiring local adoption and more stringent requirements by local governments.
Agriculture.
Senate Bill 293 by Senators Huff-Stetler of the 52nd and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 33 of the OCGA relating to insurance so as to provide for certain consumer protections against balance billing. Senate Bill 294 by Senators Black of the 8th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 472087 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to eligible large retirement systems authorized to invest in certain alternative investments.
Retirement.
Senate Bill 295 by Senators Wilkinson of the 50th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Titles 15 and 48 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to courts and revenue and taxation respectively so as to revise
State and local government.
Senate Bill 296 of Senator Heath of the 31st, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 18 of Title 43 of Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to funeral directors and establishments, embalmers, crematories.
Regulated industries.
Senate Bill 297 by Senators Durden of the 6th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Part 1 of Article 2 of Chapter 8 of Title 12 of the OCGA relating to general provisions relative to solid waste management, so to provide for conditions.
Natural resources.
Senate Resolution 537 by Senators James of the 35th and others, a resolution apologizing for slavery and Jim Crow and reaffirming the state's commitment to freedom and for other purposes.
Rules.
Senate Resolution 546 by Senators Ligon of the 3rd, a resolution encouraging local law enforcement agencies, psychiatric facilities, doctors, and therapists to purchase and freely distribute mental health alert wristbands to
Health and Human Services.
Mr. President, that completes the order.
Chair recognizes the Majority Leader. Is there objection? The chair hears none. And the roll call is suspended. now time for our morning devotional. All senators, please take your seats, which you're doing a great job of right now. Cease all audible conversations, and I'd ask that the doorkeepers secure the chamber at this time. I'd like to recognize our majority leader once again to lead us in our pledge and to introduce our chaplain of the day.
Thank you, Mr. President. Y'all stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the Georgia flag. I pledge allegiance to the Georgia flag and the principles for which it stands, wisdom, justice, and moderation. Over my time, I've seen pastors that are experts at guiding their flock, that they do all kinds of work outside of their church services. I've seen others that can deliver a powerful message from the pulpit that resonates and reshapes your soul. I've seen some that look at the communities and say, these are some issues that we have, and they actively work to fix those issues. I've even seen some pastors that have singing voices where you look at them and go, maybe they made the wrong career choice. But Shannon Lovelady is one of those rarities that combines all those attributes into one package. What he does through his ministry at Southern Hills Christian Church and through the organization City Station is changing lives around the world. These are truly disciples creating disciples. Please join me in welcoming my friend, Shannon Lovelady.
Thank you, Senator Dugan. He is a dear friend of mine, and I know you guys know why. He is genuine to the core. Thank you guys for allowing me to be here this morning. It's such an honor for me to get to be here with you guys, and I believe our jobs are very similar at the core of the gospel, and I'm smart enough to know in this room not everybody ascribes to the core of the heart of the gospel message, but at the heart of the gospel message is sacrifice. At the heart of the gospel message is selflessness. At the heart of the gospel message is laying down your life. Philippians 2 actually says that Jesus, being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God as something to be grasped, and he gave up his seat and became a servant. Scripture actually says he became a slave, even to death on a cross, ultimately, so that we could have life. And ultimately, that is why we all do what we do. Is we understand what it means to be a servant. As we kicked off 2020 at our church, we've been challenging our church what it means to be all in, what it means to serve, what it means to sacrifice, and what it means to be selfless. And as I was trying to think of what I would like to share with you guys this morning, I just want to remind us of this selflessness. I believe there's 4 types of people in this world, and in the context of what I've been speaking to my church, I believe that there's 4 types of people in their relationship with the Lord, but I believe it carries across all boundaries in this world. Jesus actually said in Luke chapter 9, some of you guys may be familiar with the story as his ministry was really carrying underway and gaining steam. These folks kept coming to him and saying, hey, I want to follow you. I want to be in this thing that you're doing, this movement. And he kept saying things like, you don't have time to go back and say goodbye to your family. He kept saying things like, foxes have dens and birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. And finally, ultimately, he said, listen, if you really want to follow me, this is an all-in proposition. This idea of selflessness, this idea of servitude is an all-in proposition. And he actually said anyone who puts his hand to the plow and looks back isn't fit for the kingdom of God. And I believe, again, there are 4 types of people in this world. And the first category, I do not think it describes this room. The first category is just those that choose to say, you know what, I'm not going to pick up that plow. I'm not going to serve. I'm not going to lay down my life. I have no interest in that. And just by the fact that we're in this room here today, and the great history and the tradition of so many servants who have gone before us, it tells me that that is not who is in this room. But there's other types of people in this world, and specifically, I think there are those that choose to pick up the plow, that choose to pick up the attitude of serving and to serve and to give and to sacrifice, but they only choose when they know what is in it for them. And my prayer would be that that's not us. This world and the allure of it is very tempting, and my prayer would be that our servants' hearts are pure. I also think there are those people who choose to pick up the plow and serve with the belief that they will ultimately get something in return for that. And again, my prayer would be that that's not us, because as you guys can attest, I know it's been calm right now, but you know it's going to get riled up as we move forward. And as you guys can attest, it gets hard. And if our hearts are not in it for the right reason, we will look back. We will drop the plow. The soil will get hard. And finally, I believe that there's that group, and I pray that this is us in this room today. There's that group that chooses to say, I will serve, I will sacrifice, I will be all in, I will give everything of myself, I will pick up the plow and choose to serve without any thought of what I might get in return. Ultimately, that's the heart of the gospel. Ultimately, my prayer for us as leaders and wherever God has placed us in this world, and specifically you here today as leaders in the Senate, as leaders of this great state of Georgia, my prayer would be that as we move forward over the next few weeks together, we're smart enough to know that we all have different opinions and different views and different things that we care about and are passionate about. But my prayer for all of us would be, as we move forward in the days and weeks and months to come, and as you guys serve, is that we would understand that at the end of the day, our goal is sacrifice. Our goal is to give up self, to give up our desires, to not think about what we might get in return, but to understand that there is a great state of people here who have chosen you to represent them and have chosen you as the person that they trust to uphold them and their values and what they desire. And so my prayer would be much like Jesus prayed. There is a lot of power in this room today, and I think we're all smart enough to understand that and be aware of that. But much like Jesus, God in the flesh represented this power in John chapter 13, as he knew that his time on this earth was coming to an end. I think this is one of the most sobering passages in all of Scripture. In John chapter 13, verse 3, it says this: Jesus knew that the Father had given him authority. And it says Jesus knew that the Father had given him authority over everything, and that he had come from God and he would return to God. And listen to his response in verse 4. Knowing that he had this great authority and great power, more than any of us in this world could ever aspire and want, it says, so he got up from the table, he took off his robe, he wrapped a towel around his waist, and he poured water into a basin. And then he began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that he had around him. May we serve in that way. May our heart's desire always be, at its core, to give of ourselves. That's what being human is all about, whether you ascribe to the gospel message or not. We all know deep down in our core that's why we were created, is to give of self, to live selflessly, to serve, to sacrifice, so that others might live. Let's pray. God, I thank you for the opportunity that you have given us in our different areas of life to lead. God, may we never take that privilege for granted. God, may we always understand our place in this earth, that we were put on this earth to serve, to sacrifice, to give, without expecting anything in return. And so, God, my prayer simply for this group of men and women who are gathered here today over the next few hours and days and weeks and even months, God, my prayer would be that that would be at the core of the discussions that are had, even in disagreements, God, even in the things that we feel so passionate about. God, may the core always be selflessness. May the core always be giving of ourselves without expecting anything in return for the good of others. Thank you for Jesus. Thank you for the example of that. And in his name I pray this morning. Amen. Thank you.
Your words, not mine. What's up, Larry? Mr. Secretary, will you please read a message from the Governor and Speaker to this chamber?
Mr. President, the Senate has received a supplemental list of appointments made by the Governor and the Speaker of the House of Representatives to the Judicial Qualifications Commission. All names have been placed on the desk.
We'll send that to the Committee on Assignments. Thank you. Are there any unanimous consents? I'd like to recognize the Doctor of the Day. To call on the Senator from the 18th to recognize our Doctor of the Day.
Good morning, colleagues, and thank you, Mr. President. I am indeed pleased to introduce to you our Doctor of the Day, a close personal friend of mine and constituent, Dr. Rana Muna, who is a graduate of Mercer University School of Medicine. She completed her internal medicine residency at the Atlanta Medical Center and became board certified and began her private practice right there with us in Macon, Georgia. She specializes in health, wellness, and fitness, encouraging her patients to control hypertension and adult onset diabetes with better lifestyle choices instead of medication. She is a past president of our Bibb County Medical Society. She serves as a delegate to the annual AMA House of Delegates, and she is also on the faculty at Mercer University School of Medicine. She will tell you very quickly that one of her proudest accomplishments is her son, Christian, who is a United States Marine, who has been deployed to Afghanistan on 3 occasions and is now Special Forces. She's married to Joseph Egloff, who is over to my right and in the chamber with us this morning. He is a fine cattle farmer who owns Rocking Chair Ranch, and if you've eaten at some of the finer restaurants in Middle Georgia, you probably have had some of his beef from Rocking Chair Ranch. He provides grass-fed beef to several high-end markets, so be on the lookout for his good products. So with that, I'd like to introduce to you our Doctor of the Day.
Thank you. Thank you so much, all of you, and to our senator and good friend, John Kennedy. John did a really, really great and smart thing when he ran for this office. He came to sit with us at the Bibb County Medical Society board meeting one morning. Literally sat there with us and answered any questions we had for him. I cannot tell you how effective that is when you meet with your local medical society people and give them a chance to know you a little better. It helped him, it helped us. The pastor this morning in his prayer reminded me of something when he talked about sacrifice. I was in Italy one time and speaking to an Italian woman in my broken Italian, and I told her that I had gone to medical school late in life, age 45, and she looked at me and she said, tanti sacrifici. That means so many sacrifices. That's what you do. We know that. We know you get paid very little. We know you're here away from your family, and it's hard. We appreciate you. I look forward to meeting with you today. If you have a question about medicine, or if you're not sick, just come see me. Thank you so much.
All right, does any senator wish to rise on a point of personal privilege? Chair recognizes the senator from the 10th.
Thank you, Mr. President, member of this body. I'll be quick with this announcement this morning. I chair the Emma King Advisory Council, and I would like to personally invite each and every member of this chamber to accompany us for the celebration of Dr. Martin Luther King at the state capitol on Friday morning at 12 noon in the north end of the chamber. Governor Kemp will be our highlight speaker. He will present a resolution to the King family, followed by none other than our own Lieutenant Governor, who will bring greetings as well. Again, I want to personally invite all of you to attend the Emma King celebration at the Capitol this Friday 12 noon, northern end of the Capitol, where our governor as well as our lieutenant governor will be speaking. Right after that ceremony, we will be unveiling the state of Georgia's first interactive display up on the 4th floor of this building. And you may recall about 2 years ago, this body passed a resolution authorizing the expenditure of funds that had been granted to this council by Governor Deal. We spent those funds wisely. We will unveil this display, interactive display, right after the event on Friday morning, so please come and join us. And please stay for the unveiling of the first interactive display up on the 4th floor of the state capitol. Thank you.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 35th for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise today to wish a happy 91st birthday to an awesome, anointed, appointed, accepted, and approved man of God. He was a preacher, teacher, drum major for justice, and Nobel Peace Prize winner who happened to be born and raised only less than 3 miles from this very spot where we are sitting today. He was none other than Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. Martin Luther King, Jr. was a real servant. My mother and father grew up with him, so I knew him as a little kid. So this is a proud moment for me to tell him happy birthday in heaven. But he was one who also inspired all of us with so many words of wisdom. And one that I'll share with you before I sit down is, he said that everybody can be great because anybody can serve. You don't have to make your subject and your verb agree to serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to know about Einstein or Plato to serve or Aristotle. He said all you need is a heart full of grace and a soul generated by love. And I know many of the people who I serve with have that heart full of grace and soul generated by love. So Martin Luther King has inspired us all. Happy birthday. You were only 39 candles on your cake before you died. But you would be 91 today. So happy, happy birthday, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. I yield the will. Thank you, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 47th for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. Enjoyed your comments at Eggs and Issues this morning. Said one of the things that I wanted to do, in case you can't remember, said I get to chair the Economic Development and Tourism Committee in our Georgia Senate. But on your desk, you'll notice there's an invite to a joint legislative reception being held this evening. And I just wanted you to think about all the groups I'm going to list right here. The Associated Builders and Contractors, Associated General Contractors, Atlanta Electrical Contractors, China Clay Producers Association, Georgia Chemistry Council, Georgia Mining Association, Georgia Movers Association, Georgia Optometric Association, Georgia Restaurant Association, Georgia Sheet Metal and Air Conditioning Contractors Association, Independent Electrical Contractors Association, Licensed Professional Counselors Association of Georgia, Mechanical Contractors Association of Georgia, Plumbing, Heating, Cooling Contractors Association of Georgia. In case you need anything to eat, drink, fixed, repaired, whatever, wired up, you name it, it's all happening at this reception tonight, and I hope that you'll take time out of your day to come by and meet some of the hard-working people in Georgia. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Chair would like to recognize the senator from the 48th for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today, with a mindful and grateful heart, I rise to pay tribute to one of the scions of our time on this earth. It's been just over 50 years since the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was taken from us well before his time. Beginning tomorrow and through Monday, we will hold moments of reflection and remembrance across our nation in recognition of his life and for what Dr. King stood for. As you heard from the senator from the 10th, there are many great activities that are being held to honor this great man. In ways that will never be matched, Dr. King called us to be better than we can imagine ourselves to be. And today, in what would have been his 91st birthday, standing mere city blocks from where he grew up and put his life on the line for human rights for all of us. I wish I could say, like the senator from the 35th, that I had opportunity to know Dr. King. I can only imagine what that was like. And sometimes, in dark times, I think about Dr. King and ask what he would have done. I find it's our duty to reaffirm here today that we still refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt. I stand here to tell you that we must make real the promises of democracy. Just as Dr. King's death does not end his crusade for civil rights, equal rights, human rights, our remembrance of him on Monday does not allow us to claim his mantle. There are so many people out in our world working to fulfill the dream in real, on-the-ground, solid ways. And I can't even attempt to list them, but I'm sure all of you know people who meet that description. And indeed, many of you meet that description. And it's an honor to serve with you while we seek to achieve the dream that must continue. So this weekend, I'd encourage all of you to think about how you are advancing justice for everyone in your lives in remembrance of Dr. King. Thank you. I'll yield the well.
Thank you, Senator. I'd like to recognize the senator from the 12th for a point of personal privilege.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to welcome a group of students. I'm hoping that they would get in so that I can introduce them. They're not here yet. From Deerfield Windsor Preparatory School in Albany, Georgia. And I don't know if they're here yet. Are they? They are. Would you stand in the gallery? Deerfield Windsor Preparatory School. These are fifth graders. And one special young lady is the daughter of Judge Kenneth Hodges, one of my very, very best friends, if I should take that personal privilege. Are my students here yet? Let them in. Yes. So that they can be introduced. Okay. But anyway, we want to welcome these young people, and while they're here, they're going to engage in the history of this wonderful, awesome building and the process that as legislators, that's a part of us and our job as each session. So I wanted to get my students in, but they're not here yet. So, good morning. Say good morning to my students. Thank you.
All right, moving on. You've got a consent calendar of privileged resolutions before you. Does any senator wish to remove a resolution from the consent calendar? The chair hears none. Is there objection to the adoption of the resolution on the consent calendar? Chair hears none, and the resolutions on the consent calendar are adopted. Are there any motions to withdraw and commit? We're quiet today. The chair hears none. Chair recognizes the senator from the 52nd for a motion.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate adhere to its substitute to House Bill 276 and that a conference committee be appointed.
Will the Secretary read the caption of House Bill 276?
House Bill 276 by Representative Harrell of the 106th and others, a bill to be titled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 8 of Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to state sales and use tax so as to modify the definition of dealer, to require the collection and remittance of sales tax by certain persons that facilitate certain retail sales, to define marketplace facilitators and marketplace sellers, to provide for related matters, to provide for an effective date and applicability, to repeal conflicting laws, and for other purposes. Mr. President, that completes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 52nd to speak to his motion.
I'll waive unless there are questions.
You have no questions. Senator from the 52nd has moved that the Senate adhere to its substitute to House Bill 276 and that a conference committee be appointed. Is there objection? The chair hears none, and the Senate has adhered to its substitute to House Bill 276. At this time, I will appoint the following members to the conference committee: the senator from the 52nd, the senator from the 30th, and the senator from the 41st. We still are so quiet today. Chair recognizes the majority leader.
Mr. President, first of all, I would say let sleeping dogs lie. And the second one is I move that the Senate stand adjourned until 10 o'clock on Thursday, January 16th, 2020.
I'm used to playing in front of a rowdy crowd. Will the Secretary read any announcements?
Public safety is canceled. Higher education will meet in 450 CAP at 1:30 p.m. Education and youth is canceled. Economic development and tourism is canceled. Health and Human Services is canceled. Judiciary is canceled. And retirement is canceled. Mr. President, that completes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 31st for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yesterday, I failed to make the announcement about our prayer fellowship that was this morning. I would encourage you all to put that on your calendar and join us if you can. It will almost every Wednesday morning be at 7:15 in the governor's conference room. We'd love to have you there. Also, I want to announce that tomorrow is our traditional Keeping Georgia Wild Summit in the Capitol. You will remember these from years past with some wildlife down there, some reptiles and birds and what have you. We'll have various groups down there such as the DNR, Georgia Wildlife Federation, Ducks Unlimited, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, Trout Unlimited, NRA, National Assembly Sportsmen's Caucus, and others. So be a good day if you got some school groups or young folks. Be a good day to bring them and let them enjoy that as well. And that's it. Thank you.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 12th for an announcement.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. My students are here. Would you please stand? Deerfield Windsor Preparatory Academy from Albany, Georgia. And would you guys please welcome them? Thank you guys so much for visiting with us. That was a long trek from Albany, Georgia. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Mr. Secretary, will you read your additional announcement?
Tomorrow's meeting of Science Technology is now canceled. That completes the order, Mr. President.
All right, the majority leader has moved that the Senate stand adjourned until Thursday, January 16th, 2020 at 10 a.m. sharp. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes clearly have it, and the Senate stands adjourned.